Children of alcoholic parents' development. Unfortunately, some parents are alcoholic and they put their child at risk for not only alcohol and other drug use, but for psychological problems. A child who observes their parent having an alcohol abuse problem and parents who do not develop a healthy relationship with their child increases the risk of them acting out of school and other places. Through the examination of Bandura's social learning theory and John Bowman's theory of attachment, it is evident that a child who lives with parents who drinks will have a negative long-term effect emotionally and behavioral issues. First, according to Bandura's social learning theory, it states that people can learn by watching other people perform the behavior. Observational learning explains the nature of a child who learns behavior by watching the behavior of people around them and eventually imitating them. For example, in an article about teens who live with alcoholic parents, they stated, "I resisted for a while, but it was hard when they were obviously having fun. My mother was becoming more infirm and dependent on me as she got older. I also used booze as a way to help me cope with her." Showing how just seeing and living in an environment with alcoholic parents can persuade a person to not only become an alcoholic but experience negative behavior. Secondly, Bowman's theory of attachment displays how having a healthy relationship with your child is important for development. However, when a parent is intoxicated, it is hard for them to attain a healthy relationship. Bowman's theory has 3 stages. The first one is the observational stage. According to the alcohol myopia theory, it says that people that are intoxicated focus more on environmental cues and less on others. An example is a story from a teen that lived with an alcoholic parent. My life as a child of an alcoholic parent was frightening and lonely. I had a different childhood to all my friends, no birthday parties. There was no one I could talk to and no one to help. I just had to put up. Alcoholic parents who do not observe their child puts their lives at risk. A parent who is not intoxicated will be able to experience a separation with their child. However, when a child sees a parent drinking, they will not want to separate because they will feel obligated to take care of them. In an article about teens' experiences dealing with an alcoholic parent, they stated, "I kept my mom's drinking to myself as I was going through high school, convinced that others could smell my shame, that her disease controlled my day-to-day life. I felt embarrassed that my family was struggling through this." Instead of branching out and becoming their own person, the child becomes responsible for the parent and isn't able to experience the separation stage, which will have a child developing a negative emotional attachment. Only during stage 3, children start to interact with others, developing relationships. They are able to explore their environment more. However, a child of an alcoholic parent more often has problems in school and has a difficult time establishing relationships with teachers and class. For example, from a story about teens coping with alcoholic parents, they said, "At 15 years old, I would come home from school and meet up with my mother and grandmother in the pub. My mother would buy me beer, and I started hanging out with a very rough group where I live. They were drinking and constantly doing drugs. Overall, a child will have a negative long-term behavioral effects from growing up with an alcoholic parent. They will experience behavioral problems such as lying, stealing, and fighting. These children live in an extremely unstable home environment. They never know what to expect from an alcoholic parent. Because they are unable to predict their parents' behavior, they don't know how to behave themselves because their parents were not able to teach them from right and wrong. They will have emotional problems because their parents were never able to show them love at a young age. Many of these children have common side effects such as low self-esteem, loneliness, guilt, feelings of helplessness, fear of abandonment, and chronic depression, which carries into adolescent time. Finally, recent evidence has suggested that children of alcoholics are at a significant risk for a variety of cognitive, emotional, and behavioral problems when compared to parents who were not raised by alcoholic parents. A child of alcoholic parents who sees their parents intoxicated will have an emotional strain on them. The lack of having a healthy relationship between child and parent increases the risk of behavioral issues. By examining Bandura's social learning theory and John Bowman's theory of attachment, it is evident that a child who lives with parents who drink will have a negative long-term effect emotionally and behavioral issues.
Created using Powtoon.